So, greetings to all the viewers. Today, I will be presenting on the topic communication competence, language, power, and social identity. Communication is often viewed as the exchange of information, but it is much more than that. Through communication, individuals construct identities, establish relationships, and participate in social systems. The presentation examines how communication competence is shaped by language, power structures, and social identities. So, before going into the topic, try thinking about the concepts. Why do some people communicate more effectively than others? How does language influence power? How does communication shape identity? So we'll get answers to all these questions by going on the slides. Yeah. So what is communication? Communication is a process of sharing information, ideas, and emotions fundamental to the human interaction, shapes relationships and social structures. Communication is linked to language, power, and identity. How come? Communication is a fundamental human activity. Communication is central to every aspect of human life. From childhood, individuals learn to interact with others through language, gestures, and symbols. Communication enables cooperation, learning, emotional expression, and social organization. Next, it shapes relationships. How come? So, the quality of communication often determines the quality of relationships at a larger level. Communication influences institutions, communities, and cultural values. It helps maintain social order and facilitates collective action. Communication is also linked to language, power, and identity. How come? Communication is never neutral. The language people use, social positions they occupy, and the identities they hold influence how communication occurs and how messages are interpreted. So, based on these things, we'll get an overview of communication. Now, we are going to move into the competence, the core competence of communication. What is communication competence? So, let's see about that. The main components of communication competence. First of all, let's see about what is communication competence. It is the ability to communicate effectively. Effective communication means successfully conveying the intended messages. The receiver should understand the message accurately, and the communication should achieve its intended purpose. Next, communication competence means ability to communicate appropriately. Appropriate communication requires sensitivity to context. A message suitable among friends might not be suitable in the professional meeting or academic setting. So we must be conscious about what are we speaking and to whom are we speaking. Next, communication competence gives the essential need for academic and professional success. Communication competence helps students perform well in presentations, discussions, and teamwork. In workplaces, it contributes to collaboration, leadership, and career advancement. Now, let's talk about the components of communication competence. Components of communication competence. There are four main components: linguistic competence, socio-cultural competence, strategic competence, and interpersonal competence. So, what is linguistic competence? This refers to the knowledge of grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and sentence structure. Without linguistic competence, ideas may be misunderstood. That is why it is mentioned that grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and sentence structures are important. Next, sociocultural competence. This involves understanding cultural norms and expectations. Effective communicators adapt their communication according to the social and cultural context. It is not only about the content, but it is more about the listeners. How are we communicating things to them is more important than the content itself. Next, strategic competence. Strategic competence helps individuals overcome the communication difficulties by using paraphrasing, clarification, and alternative expressions. These alternative expressions, clarifications, and paraphrasing might help the listening individual to comprehend the information in a more accurate manner. Next, interpersonal competence. This is the according to me, this is the most important competence in proper and effective communication. Why? Because this involves empathy, active listening, and relationship management. It enables productivity, it enables productive interactions and mutual understandings. Such kind of mutual understanding between the speaker and the listener is much more important. Why? Because the information conveyed is not a single way process, it is a double way communication. Therefore, we need a proper mutual understanding for the informations to be interpreted in a proper way. So, next, language acts as a social tool. Why? How come? Language can be termed as a social tool because it expresses ideas. Language allows an individual to communicate thoughts, emotions, opinions, and knowledge. Next, language builds relationships through greetings, conversations, and shared experience. Language helps one to establish a social connection and trustworthy environment. Next, language acts as a preserver of culture. Language carry traditions, histories, and cultural values across generations. So it is all the more important to get to know about the cultural differences and cultural histories of the listeners before getting involved into the interactions. Next, language influences behavior. Media messages, advertisements, and political speeches demonstrate how language can shape attitudes and actions. Next, language and society are interlinked. How come? Because language always reflects social structures. It also reflects the accents and dialects, and it also carries the social meanings which comes from the culture. Next, professional groups always use specialized language. We'll see about all these 3 points in detail. Language reflects social structures because difference in language often reveal social positions, educational backgrounds, and cultural affiliations. Next, accents and dialects carry social meanings. People frequently associate accents with intelligence, credibility, or social status. Sometimes that becomes highly unfair. So it is all the more important to have a neutral approach towards the listeners in conveying the information. Next, professional groups always use specialized language. Say, for example, doctors, engineers, lawyers, and academicians use technical terminologies that reflect professional identities and expertise. Next, how come language and power are interlinked? Understanding power in terms of communication is much more important. Why? Because power is the ability to influence others. Power comes from authority, knowledge, and status. Communication is a major source of power. Power is the ability to influence others because power enables individuals or the groups to shape decisions, beliefs, and behaviors. Power comes from authority, knowledge, and status. How come? Because teachers, managers, experts, and political leaders often possesses power because of their position and expertise towards the content. Next, communication is the major source of power. How come? People who communicate effectively can persuade others. You can you can inspire others through your sense of communication. You can mobilize the support and say and shape the public opinion. If your communication is effective and appropriate, you'll have so much more to inspire towards the crowd. Next, language and power are interlinked. As we saw about the importance of power, how come language and power are interlinked? Let's see that. Language can empower people and language can marginalize people. Can you see the opposite factors which is operating through language? It can empower people and at the same time, it can marginalize the people. Often institutions use language to maintain authority. There is one famous saying in Tamil which says that if you learn a new language, it is equal to uh, it is equal to buying a new state, which means that language holds power. If you knew a language, if you have command over your language, if you are an effective communicator, then there comes power and there comes your responsibility to convey the proper things for the listeners. Now, let's explore about language and power. So, language and power in case language can empower people. How come? Education, literacy, and effective communication enable individuals to participate actively in the societal happenings. Next, language can, on the opposite of empowering the people, language can also marginalize people. Certain language or dialects may be considered more prestigious than the others, creating inequalities. This is a very bad idea though, but still people who have a much more pride towards their language always try to marginalize the other other language speaking people through the dominance which they acquire through their language, which is not globally accepted, which is not legally or ethically right, but still people tend to do that, which is wrong. So language can empower people and at the same time language can marginalize the people. Why do institutions use language to maintain authority? Because for the operation, the people like who are in the governments, schools, and the corporations use official communication to establish norms and expectations. Because institutions are the place where you have so many works to be done, and the admin people will be in the need of managing so many workers. So authority is much more important in managing, in administrating the people. How you gain those authority? Language is one form of gaining that authority. Next, language and identity are interlinked. How come they are interlinked? Let's see about that. Language signals belonging. Language expresses your individuality. It describes your character. Communication constructs identities. Can you see the connections between these? It gives you a sense of belonging. It expresses the individual character. And at the same time, it also plays a key role in constructing your characteristic identification. Likewise, means the language people speak often reflects the cultural and community affiliations. Next, individuals use language to express personality, beliefs, and expressions. That is why it expresses the individual characteristics. You tend to express all your beliefs, cultures, history, and experience through a language. And if that language is dominant and powerful enough, you can surely inspire people. Next, communication constructs identity. Identity is continuously shaped through Social interactions, you are defined by what you speak, what you believe, and how you speak through your beliefs. So it plays a key role in constructing your identification. Next, communication barriers. So, what do you mean by barriers? The difficulties in providing an effective communication. So, these are the three major factors which primarily affects one's communication: cultural difference, language barriers, and social hierarchies. So, these barriers can create misunderstandings and limit participations. Effective communicators work to overcome such barriers through empathy, clarity, and inclusiveness. So these barriers can be easily overcome by clarity and inclusiveness, but those clarity and inclusiveness alone cannot help you. You need to have a way bigger reading, way bigger observation, and so many things. But they focusing on the basic barriers of communication. It is the cultural difference, language barriers, and social hierarchies, which creates inequalities and creates differences in communication. So communication helps people in understanding the cultural awareness. So, communication in diverse societies means communication helps people in understanding cultural awareness. It also helps us to respect for diversity, and it also pushes us towards active listening. So, in case of cultural awareness, if we are going to speak about something to some unknown audience to whom you are not personally connected, it would be, as we've seen already, cultural awareness of the people who, the history of the culture, the histories and the culture of the people whom we are going to address is much more important. Without knowing their background, you cannot directly go away and deliver a content. So thereby you learn to respect the diversity in religion, language, customs, practices, and everything which you are surrounded by. So for the understanding the cultural, for gaining a cultural awareness and respecting the diversity, you need active listening. What do you mean by active listening? Paying attention and listening to the differences and addressing them, giving the content in a proper way. So we've seen about various components related to what to say, related to communication. So how come it is relevant for an engineering students? All these concepts are highly relevant for engineering students. Why? Because it is useful for you guys in team collaboration, project presentations, and client interactions. Engineers must communicate complex technical information clearly and work effectively with diverse teams and stakeholders. Consider a multinational engineering project involving professionals from different countries. Communication challenges may arise because of language difference, cultural expectations, and organizational hierarchies. Successful teams address these challenges through inclusive communication and mutual respect. Underline the point: mutual respect. Language takes you towards learning and language, make providing, trying to give an effective communication pushes you towards providing mutual respect. That is why you learn to respect the diversity. Next, what are all the key takeaways you can get from all the learning all these concepts? Communication competence involves much more than grammar and vocabulary. It is not only about the strength of your structures in the mind. It requires awareness of social context, power relationships, and identity dynamics. Effective communication promotes inclusion, collaboration, and understanding. So, finally, to conclude, communication is a crucial skill in contemporary society. Language shapes perception, power influences communication, and social identity affects interaction. By understanding these connections, individuals can become more effective communicators and more responsible members of the society. I would like to repeat, dear viewers, please do keep in mind that language shapes perception, power influences communication, and finally, social identity affects interaction. So, thank you, one and all.